Hi, this is Chris Locke from Division 764 in Melville, and today you're watching Conductor 4.3 Agreement Explained, Installment number 2. We're going to be covering 5 different articles today, including one additional claim code which is specifically for your engineer. First article, 26A, picking up and sending out diesel units. This is your LC or LU claim. We're also going to cover the D5 claim at the same time. That's for your engineer. Article 27, industrial switching. This is your SD or ST claim. Article 31, short runs, the SR claim. Article 32, called and cancelled. And Article 34, held away from home terminal. Article 26A, picking up and setting out diesel units in road service. Conductors call for road service to assist the locomotive engineer to set up or pick up a diesel unit or units involving their locomotive constants will be paid an allowance of Paragraph A, that's your LC. Paragraph B, that's your LU. Let's give you some examples in the LC claim code. You have 3 units in your consist and you're asked to set out the 3rd unit. Well, as soon as you uncouple from that unit, you're entitled to an LC claim. What is that? The LC claim is LC 1056 and the $. You're going to put that in your CAT screen. You want to take note of all the units in your consist as well as the unit you uncoupled from. Now, if you have 3 units in your consist again and you're asked to disconnect or move the trailing 2 units, so you move the 2 of them over in one shot, well, that's also payable as an LC 1056. You get 1 claim code even though you're moving the 2 units over. Let's give you some examples of the LU claim code. You have 3 units in your consist, and for this example, they want to take your head end unit and put it to the shop. So you jump on with your engineer, throw that head end unit over the shops, make your way back to the trailing 2 units, and they say we're going to make a DP train out of those last 2 units. So they want you to double your tail end car over to a different track, and then you come back, grab your head end unit, jump back onto your 2nd unit, which has your tail end attached to it, and away you go. Those moves are considered an LU claim because it's disconnecting 2 different units that are not coupled together. Now, these claim codes, both the LC and the LU, work the same for coupling 2 units. So if you have 2 units you're in control of right now and you're told to go over to the shops and pick up a 3rd unit in your consist, well, you're entitled to an LC. If you're told to go over to the shops with your 2 units, uncouple your head end unit and grab the tail end and then put it all back together, you're entitled to an LU claim. The D5 claim code, this is a claim code that's only for your engineer, but since you're tying up their ticket, you're going to be entering this for them. They're entitled to 1 hour of pay for operating a remote unit on their train. So anytime you have a distributed power train, you automatically know your engineer is entitled to this D5 claim code. What you want to take note of is the engines in your consist, as well as which engine or engines were operated remotely, because they'll ask you that on your tie-up screen. Article 27, industrial spur switching. Train service employees required to switch industrial spurs en route of over 1 mile in length will be paid at the rate of 12.5 miles per hour as per class of service for all time so occupied. In addition, paid for the trip provided such switching is performed at a distance of 1 mile or more from the main line. This is your SD or ST claim codes for industrial switching. If you are sent off to do some switching off on a spur and you have to travel a distance of more than 1 mile from the main line, you're entitled to an SD or ST claim. Now, what is the difference between the two? If you're called on a through freight ticket, well, you're entitled to an SD claim. If you're called on a turn ticket, you're going to be claiming an ST. When you make this claim, either an SD or ST, you're going to be making it for all time occupied at the location. So if you're there from 1 in the morning to 6:45 in the morning, total of 5 hours and 45 minutes of switching, you're entitled to collect an SD or an ST there of not 5:45 and the T for the time claim. I want you to take one more note of this article. This section right here, all time so occupied. It's come to the attention of the union that the company has been deducting time from people's time slip with the claim that your engines were not moving. Well, as you can see, Article 27 says for all time so occupied. So if your tick is cut for the reason that, quote, your engines were not moving the entire time, well, you need to let the union know about it. You also need to enter a standalone claim for this and report back to the union if you're not paid. Article 31, short runs. On short runs where the mileage of round trips is 50 miles or less, 100 miles and terminal switching will be paid, as well as overtime. Except as provided in paragraph 31.1, herein short runs will be paid on the basis of 100 miles one way and mileage and terminal switching the other way, except in cases where overtime is made in either direction, when such overtime will be paid. This article does not apply to employees in road switch service or work train service. Where does a short run come into play? Well, number one, you must be ordered on a turn ticket. Example, you're called on a turn ticket to Kenora, which is less than 50 miles in one way. That means your round trip pays less than 100 miles. How are we going to claim this short run claim? Well, option one is you use an SR claim code. What you're going to have to do in this case, you're going to have to deduct the miles traveled in one direction and add SR100M into your tie-up screen. Your second option is to find out the miles in one direction. So let's give an example. You're going 45 miles in one direction. Well, you're going to need to add 55 miles to your run miles to add that 100 miles going one way. Article 32, called and canceled. Train service employees who are canceled after accepting a call for road service will be paid for time held on duty through freight rates with a minimum of 4 hours and will maintain their original standing on the working board. Train service employees who report for duty and afterwards are canceled will be permitted to book up to 8 hours rest at the home terminal and up to 6 hours rest at other terminals without affecting their turn. Train service employees performing work after coming on duty will be entitled to a minimum day and will maintain their original standing in the working board with the right of booking up to 8 hours rest at their home terminal or up to 6 hours rest at their other terminals, if desired. In application of this paragraph, performing work will be interpreted as, and there's a few examples for you. So what about being called and canceled at home? Well, if you are called and canceled before you left home for your start time, no payment is due at all. How about arriving at work? You come into the station, you book in, you get all your paperwork ready, and you sit down getting ready to wait for your train for a while, and then somebody walks in and cancels you. Well, you're entitled to 4 hours pay, plus you can book up to 8 hours rest at your home terminal or up to 6 hours of rest at your away from home terminal, and you hold your turn as well. Now let's go even further. You arrived at work, got your paperwork, jumped in the chauffeur's truck and head out to your power, get out in the tracks and start building your train. Working out there for 5 hours and they decide to cancel you. Well, you're entitled to 5 hours of pay and 100 miles. Plus you get 8 hours of rest at your home terminal or up to 6 hours of rest at your away from home terminal. And same thing, you still hold your turn on the board. Now if you go in to tie up your ticket and do not see your 100 miles, you can enter it as an IP claim. If it's not paid, please let the union know. Held away from home terminal, we're going to be covering Article 34 as well as Addendum 89. Article 34, except as provided in paragraph 34.2, train service employees and unassigned service who are held at their home terminal longer than 11 hours without being called for duty will be paid 1/8 of the daily rate per hour at the rate applicable to the service last performed for all the time held in excess of 11 hours. Now we're going to take a look at Addendum 89. This covers your mainline pools as well as spare boards. Employees held at other than their home terminal longer than 9 hours will be paid on the basis of 12.5 miles per hour for all the time in excess of 9 hours up to 11 hours at the minimum rate in class service last performed. Employees held longer than 11 hours will be paid on the basis of 25 miles per hour for all time in excess of 11 hours up to 14 hours at the minimum rate in the class of service last performed. Employees will be called for duty 14 hours from the time pay ceases on the incoming trip and will thereafter be subject to the hours of service regulations and or rest provisions. Employees will not be called and canceled to defeat the operation of this agreement. Voluntary rest booked at the away from home terminal up to 3 hours will be added to the times above in the following manner. And here's your chart down here. This explains to us how everything's going to be paid out when you're held away on the main line. And we'll give you an example of booking no rest. So hours 9 and 10 will be paid at 12.5 miles per hour. Hours 11, 12, and 13 will be paid at 25 miles per hour. On hour 14, you need to be called for your train or put in a taxi to go home. Now let's take a look at what happens when you book rest on the main line. We're going to be adding now extra time into the amount of time you're away from home. Example 2 here, we have 2 hours of rest we're booking. Well, your held away now does not begin until the 11th hour. So hours 11 and 12 will be paid at 12.5 miles per hour. Hours 13, 14, and 15 will be paid at 25 miles per hour. So that means now you can be held at your away from home terminal for up to 16 hours. On your 16th hour, you need to be called for your train or put in a taxi to go home. Now let's take a look at held away on the branch line. Employees held on other than their home terminal longer than 9 hours will be paid on the basis of 12.5 miles per hour in times of excess of 9 hours up to 14 hours at the minimum rate in class service last performed. Employees held longer than 14 hours will be paid on the basis of 25 miles per hour for all time in excess of 14 hours up to 18 hours. At the minimum rate in class service last performed, employees will be called for duty 18 hours from the time pay ceases on the incoming trip and will thereafter be subject to hours of service regulations and or rest provisions. Employees will not be called and canceled to defeat the operation of this agreement. Voluntary rest booked at the away from home terminal of up to 3 hours will be added to the times above in the following manner. So let's take a look at the branch line here. We don't book any rest. Hours 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 are paid at 12.5 miles per hour. Hours 14, 15, 16, and 17 will be paid at 25 miles per hour. And by hour 18, you need to be called or put in a taxi to go home. What happens now if we take 2 hours rest? Well, we're going to be there for up to 20 hours. Hours 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 paid at 12.5 miles per hour. Hours 16, 17, 18, 19 paid at 25 miles per hour. And by hour 20, you need to be called for your train or put in a taxi to go home. This concludes Conductor 4.3 Agreement Explained, Installment number 2. If you have any questions you want covered in a future installment, let us know. We'll be happy to take a look at them.